After years and years of waiting, I gotta admit, it's pretty refreshing to feel like the Cybertruck actually has some traction going for it. Because, of course, they didn't want to give us too much information at Investor Day, but they waited for April Fool's Day to actually tease us because Tesla knows they've got some amazing internet traffic anytime they put Cybertruck content out there, and clearly April Fool's was the absolute best time to let us know that Tesla at least seems to be doing internal crash testing on the Cybertruck. You can tell by the lettering and the test track that it's on that this is not a NHTSA official crash test. This is clearly Tesla's internal crash team, but the reason I got very excited by this April Fool's Day gag is if you've been following Tesla for a while, you're aware that there's really not much point in doing crash testing on vehicles that are not like production ready, because if you build Cybertrucks by hand or if you build them with, you know, prototype-y parts and you're just kind of heavily modifying a Model X Plaid and that kind of thing, nothing is really finalized yet, and how it crumples and how it crashes is yet to be determined. So the fact that they just hooked this thing up and are monitoring it from so many different camera angles, yes, to tease us and make us all want to see where this actually goes, but also just to monitor the undercarriage and seeing it from so many different angles and how it's going to crumple. To me, this is a good indication that the Cybertruck design is as close as we're gonna get to finalized. Like Franz has said on the Ride the Lightning podcast, with Tesla's vehicles, it's never really pencils down. There's always refinement, and even a couple months after Cybertruck production starts, there will still probably be tweaks and updates they make based on user request and any issues that they may find with the Cybertruck out in the field. But if you're doing crash testing, that means that you've got active and passive safety systems in place. They've clearly got the dummies in the back, and these are the expensive, complex dummies that are going to measure the impact and how the Cybertruck performs in a front-end collision like this. But it also gets me excited because I know for a while now there's been a ton of misinformation about Cybertruck safety, and a lot of people just implying that because it looks weird and because it's sharp, therefore it is dangerous and will not be legal. And it seems like a lot of people seem to think that just because the Cybertruck has this rigid, durable exoskeleton, that means that it won't crumple in a collision and that it would just basically bounce off anything that it ran into, or it would just go through it. When in reality, I try to remind people, just because it has a very rigid exoskeleton that, yes, you can't dent with a sledgehammer, that doesn't mean when the entire vehicle, which is probably 6,000 plus pounds, is going into a wall at, 40 to 60 miles an hour, that doesn't mean it's indestructible, okay? Steel still bends, there will still be a crumple zone, and Tesla has the safest vehicles on the road right now, so I don't know why everyone assumed that just because the Cybertruck looks different, therefore Tesla has completely thrown out all considerations when it comes to safety. So, as exciting as it would have been to be able to see how it performs in a crash test, I still feel very confident that because Tesla's teasing us with these April Fool's Days videos, that means that they have taken it through the crash test, and you can tell from the footage they showed us that this is not the first crash they have done either. The Cybertruck has likely run into that same wall several times over, and they got lots of samples to pull from and see if there's any tweaks they can make, and they're likely comparing their simulation data to real world data. But yes, I personally think Tesla still put a huge emphasis on safety with the Cybertruck, and this one appears to fall in line very closely with the pre-production beta model that we saw at Investor Day with that updated woke design. It's got the more boxy mirrors, it's got the cyber wiper, which appears to be making it to production, and on top of that, at Tesla's Fremont facility, there's been lots more drone flyover footage of this type of Cybertruck model. I don't think it's the same one because this one likely doesn't drive anymore, but clearly I think now that we're seeing lots of prototypes of the same spec, that Tesla is getting closer to that finalized design, and there's been lots of sightings out in California as well of them testing it and basically seeing how the rear wheel steering can perform. Elon told us that the steering radius of the Cybertruck should be better than that of the Model Y, which is a good sign, but I will mention both from my experience driving a Model Y and my good friend Mike's experience, we both agree the turning radius on the Model Y is not that great. I mean, it's impressive considering the Cybertruck is such a large vehicle that it will have a tighter turning radius, but if you've ever test driven an ID4, oh my god, that is a vehicle with a great turning radius. It basically turns on a dime, whereas the Model Y turns on a US dollar coin or whatever those old coins were. But the bizarre part of all this that I'm still having a hard time following is all of the sightings and all of the testing has been at Fremont. I fully admit that it makes no sense to do crash tests on a vehicle that's not using production parts. That's part of the reason Aptera has not done crash testing yet, but the only place in the world right now that has the 9,000-ton gigapress needed to build the Cybertruck underbody components has been installed at Giga Texas, and we haven't really seen any Cybertrucks driving around Giga Texas as of lately. Nothing gets by Joe Tegmeyer and Jeff Roberts. They fly over the facility all the time. I feel like they would definitely catch it. So who knows, maybe this crash testing is being done at Giga Texas, but as far as I'm aware, I don't think they have a crash testing facility there. Maybe they installed one, but that's like the one last thing that I think we'll see before we start getting like EPA test results of the Cybertruck, is actually seeing the production builds driving around Giga Texas for testing and calibration. Because Tesla has their main engineering headquarters in California, maybe that's why we're seeing so much testing and calibration done here, but I guess there's a chance these Cybertrucks driving around maybe are using parts that were built off of the assembly line at Giga Texas. And simultaneously, Elon just tweeted not too long ago that he walked the entire Cybertruck assembly line and it's gonna be great. So that means that a lot of the tooling must be making steady progress, and they're assembling more of that factory line that's gonna be hopefully active later this year. But even more so than usual, I am now extremely excited for Tesla's earnings call on April 19th, where hopefully they go into a little bit more detail on how Cybertruck production line is coming along, how the tooling process is going, and if they still plan on production starting in mid-2023, which is getting nearer and nearer by the day because it's April now, and technically mid-2023 would start in June, July. So yes, I will thankfully admit that it is encouraging to see them doing crash testing and to hear Elon is walking the assembly line. I'm still very curious like how they're mass producing exoskeletons, because I know that process can't be the same stamping process that they use for the exterior body panels for Model 3s and Model Ys. So how they're going to scale production of that, I'm sure they've thought about it. I'm sure there's a good method in mind, but I can visualize how they're mass producing 4680 cells, and we know how the underbody giga castings are made repeatedly, and we know Tesla's mass produced powertrains before, but the exoskeleton I feel like is the newest thing that they haven't really mass produced at scale. Same with armored glass, which didn't make it with the Tesla Semi, so I'm also very curious if they will ship armored glass on the Cybertruck or they're gonna scrap that as well. But also worth mentioning, in the dummy test, there's clearly not a middle seat passenger for the front or back rows, and personally, I think that's the biggest reason they decided not to let the Cybertruck be a 6-seater. With that ginormous display in the middle, there's just no way to safely put someone in the middle seat. And that brief shot they gave us underneath showing the massive control arms and the suspension system in place seems to be very impressive, and definitely has a lot of differences compared to the Model S or X or 3 or Y. So I think the Cybertruck suspension system is going to be state-of-the-art, probably come close to that or beat out that of the Rivian R1T. But I'm curious of your guys' interpretations. Do you think this is still using non-production parts and Tesla's just trying to make sure that the crash rating will be okay, even though this could be a hand-built model? Or do you think it was built in Giga Texas and maybe they just shipped it over to California for testing? Feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.